Good morning, grade 10. You're welcome to today's class. And this is biology class, grade 10. And in today's lesson, we'll be rounding off the topic that we already started, which is the human influence on the environment. If you remember, we already talked about some subtopics like pollution, habitat destruction, deforestation, eutrophication. We've already talked about that in this topic. But today, we'll be talking about the final aspect of this topic, which is conservation. Conservation. So, before we start the class, can you please think about it? What do you think conservation means? What does it mean to conserve? If you want to conserve something, what does it mean to you? Okay, have you thought about it? Basically, conserve means manage. Okay, to conserve means to manage, to use properly, not to waste. Okay, these are the meanings of conserve. Okay, so in this topic, we'll be looking at conservation in terms of natural resources. Okay, the resources that we have in the environment. We look at conservation in terms of the resources that we have in the environment. So, when we talk about conservation, we have to understand some words. First, sustainable resource. Sustainable resource. What does sustainable resource mean? Sustainable. Okay? Basically, sustainable resource is a resource which can be removed from the environment without running out. Okay? This resource can be removed from the environment without running out. That means no matter how you use it, it does not finish. That's a sustainable resource. However, we have unsustainable resource. These are resources that, when we use, it will finish if we don't use it wisely. Okay? That means for us to have sustainable resource, we have unsustainable resource, which means this resource, when we use them and we don't use them wisely, it can finish. So we need to conserve this unsustainable resource. Okay? We need to look after them. We need to manage them. We need to use them properly. Okay, so that leads us to conservation. Conservation is a process of looking after the natural environment. Okay? Conservation attempts to maintain or increase the range of different species living in an area known as biodiversity. Okay? Because we said that we need to conserve unsustainable resource, and we know that species of plants, insects, animals, are all known as biodiversity, and they need to be conserved. You understand? They need to be conserved. So conservation helps us to manage our biodiversity. It helps us to manage our plants, the trees, the different species of trees, the different species of insects, different species of organisms. Alright? So that's basically what conservation does. 1. Sustainable resource. What is sustainable resource? A resource that can be removed without running out. What is conservation? The process of looking after the natural environment. What does conservation do? It helps us to manage our biodiversity. Okay? What is biodiversity? Different species living in an area. Different species of organisms living in an area. Okay? So, what are the ways that we can use to conserve? How can we conserve? Okay, we want to conserve. How can we go about conservation? First is recycling. We can recycle. What does recycling mean? I'm sure you know a little about recycling. Basically, recycling means reusing or changing the form of something or reusing something. Okay? So what are the things that we can recycle? What are the products that can be recycled and the benefits of recycling? The first product that can be recycled is glass. Glass is made from a non-sustainable resource, so it has to be recycled. It means if we do not recycle glass, the resource, the non-sustainable resource, will finish. Okay, so for us to save the resource, we have to recycle glass. Okay, the other product is plastics. Plastics can be made from fossil fuels. Okay, it can be recycled so we can reduce the amount of fossil fuel that we use. Okay, so we can recycle plastic so we can reduce or save the resource. Paper. We all know that paper is made from trees. So the more paper you waste, the more trees that needs to be cut down to make another one, to make other ones. Okay? So when we recycle paper, it will reduce the amount of trees cut down to make new ones. Okay? So if you recycle paper, it's going to reduce the amount of trees cut down. That means by recycling paper, we can conserve our trees. The next one is metals. We know the effect of mining on the habitat. We know that mining damages the habitat and requires a lot of energy. So most metals can be recycled, so we reduce the rate of mining. So if we recycle metals, we can reduce the rate of mining. If we reduce the rate of mining, we will reduce the damages that is done on the habitat. That means if we reduce the rate of mining, we can conserve the habitat. Okay? So, we've talked about recycling as one of the ways of conserving. Now we will talk about sewage treatment. Okay? Sewage treatment. Sewage treatment is also a way of conserving our habitat. I'll tell you how. You know what sewage means? Sewage is mainly water contaminated with organic material, solids, bacteria, and minerals such as phosphate. That means we have sewage. Sewage means water that is contaminated. Okay? So, if this sewage is not treated, okay, it goes into the water body like the rivers, like the lakes, okay? And you can remember when we talked about eutrophication, and we said that all of this affects the water body. All of this depletes oxygen in the water body. Alright? So, in places where water is in short supply, the sewage is treated to provide water that is clean enough to drink. So, this water plus contaminated organic materials can be treated so we can have clean water again. Okay? However, when this sewage, that is water plus contaminated organic material, is treated, we have clean water to drink, okay? And the remains, the effluent, that's the remains that is returned to the water system, such as river, will not cause problems because it's already treated. I'm going to explain this again. Sewage is water plus contaminated organic material. When we treat this sewage, we have clean water plus treated effluent, okay? And this remains or effluent will not be able to cause eutrophication. So if we treat sewage, it's going to conserve water bodies. Because if we do not treat sewage, we'll have eutrophication, which is going to deplete oxygen, is going to kill organisms in water bodies. But if we treat it, then the effluent would not be capable of causing eutrophication, and then it will not affect the water habitat. Okay? So we've talked about recycling, we've talked about sewage treatment. So, now we want to go to conserving forest and fish stock. How can we conserve forest and fish stock? Forest and fish stocks can be sustained using education, legal protest, and restocking. You know what forest means, okay? How can we use education to conserve our forest? Basically, when it comes to conservation, people need to know the importance of conservation. They need to know why they need to conserve. They need to know the effects of them not conserving the natural resource. Okay, so when they know, they can find alternatives. Do you understand what I mean? They can find alternatives to their nonchalant behavior about the environment. Okay, so basically, education means sensitizing people about the importance of conservation. So when they know what to do, and they know how to do it, okay, to help or to save the environment. Another thing is restocking. What does restocking mean? It means when you cut a tree, you plant another one. Okay, so replacing cut down trees so species can be conserved. So for instance, you cut a particular species of tree, you have to plant another one. So the moment you plant another one, at least you can manage, you can save, okay, the species. So the next one we'll talk about is legal quotas. This simply means that governments should refuse to grant license to companies who want to cut down valuable forests. Okay, so doing these three things can help us to conserve our forests. So the question says, name three ways that we can sustain, that can be used to sustain our forest and fish. Then we know is education, restocking, and legal quotas. Okay? So because of that, we have different conservation programs. Okay? So what are the reasons for this conservation program? Why do we even need to have this conservation program? Okay? So number one, if habitat is lost, so are the species that live in them. So habitat destruction poses the greatest threat to the survival of species. Okay, so reasons for conservation programs. Number one, many species of animals and plants are in danger of extinction. I'm sure you know what extinction means. Extinction means we don't have them again. At a point, we will not have them again. For instance, even now, we only hear about some animals. We don't have them. We can't see them. Okay, they've gone into extinction. So we need to conserve, okay, so we don't put animals and plants in danger of extinction, okay, due to factors such as habitat destruction, introduction of other species, international trade, and pollution. Okay? The second one is loss of a species also means that genes are lost. Okay, if we lose one species, it means that genes are lost. And this may be important in the future of genetic engineering. So if we keep losing genes or we keep losing species, we will not be able to improve our crops. Okay? We will not be able to improve our production of useful chemicals such as medicines. Okay? The species may play an important role in the food chain. This is very important. Okay? Because for instance, we know what happens on the food chain. If a species is lost in the food chain, it affects every other trophic level in the food chain. Okay? So its loss could endanger other species. Okay? Many plant species contain chemicals that can be used as drugs. So these are the reasons for conservation. These are the reasons why we need to conserve our habitats, why we need to save our environment. Okay? So, I think we have homework, booklet page 96. Okay? This homework is all about the topic. So, on this topic, we have 3 videos, so you can go and watch the other 2 videos to be able to answer all the questions in this homework. Like I said, this is the last lesson for the semester, and I'd like to get your homework, so I'll be sure that you understand this lesson, okay? And for those that have been sending in their homeworks, thank you. For those that are not sending it, please try as much as possible to answer all the questions and send it to me. And I'd like to say thank you to the mothers for their support, okay? So, stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.